He said that the party now needs full deconstruction and followed by reconstruction. He's got a point, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people offering their advice at the moment, but, I was up and down the country knocking on doors, Sheffield, Nottingham, Milton Keynes, Bristol, as well as my own patch here in Croydon in London. And there was a lot of what went on was to do with the vaccine, I think. We over the last year, this country has experienced collectively a trauma like nothing we've experienced since the Second World War. And, I'm not going to hide the fact that there are big problems that Labour's got to deal with to win back trust that's been broken over a period of time. But if you look at the results in England, where Boris Johnson did relatively well, in Wales, where Mark Drakeford did relatively well, the Welsh First Minister, in Scotland, where the Scottish First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, did reasonably well, it looks to me like countries, people who had experienced a terrible trauma, came out and kind of voted with a sense of gratitude for the furlough scheme and the vaccination programme that has been rolling out and showing people a way out of what's going on. Now, because of the pandemic, it's kind of put the rest of politics as usual has been put to one side. So, Keir Starmer, since he was elected leader of the Labour Party, I think it was 2nd of April last year now, has never been able to give a speech in front of a live audience, has never been able to shake a voter's hand. That's an extraordinary circumstance.
Sure, I take the point that it's a difficult time for opposition parties. That's definitely true. I totally understand that. But if you're talking about what does the party stand for, what were the big policies, what were the big ideas, and what breaks through and what people understand and what people don't. I mean, look at a poll in the Mail on Sunday today that says this issue, again, that Tony Blair talked about, the woke issue, when it asked people, this poll, what does the Labour Party stand for, and do you agree with those things? The answers were the Labour Party stands for gender politics, that the country is innately racist, that they want to tear down statues of historical figures. And none of those issues are issues that people want the Labour Party or want any party to be standing up for.
Well, I mean, the underlying point you're making is absolutely right, and we all accept that. The Labour Party needs to clarify what it stands for. The point I'm making is the circumstances of a pandemic, when the attention of the country absolutely understandably has been on getting through the crisis, that is not the right time to do it. Now, as we emerge from the pandemic, then of course the Labour Party must start to shape a much clearer vision for what we think the country should look like afterwards. And as we get closer to the general election, which may be as close as 2 years away, there needs to be flesh on the bones. But if you look at what Rachel Reeves started to outline this week, immediately after her appointment as our new Shadow Chancellor, she was putting a lot of emphasis on jobs and work. And that is exactly one of the areas where the British people have got very, very serious concerns, because under the Conservatives, we've seen the huge growth of low-paid, insecure work in the gig economy. But what people are looking for is the secure, well-paid jobs of the future that will give them the ability to earn the kind of wages that will allow them to deliver the aspirations they have for themselves and for their families. Now, one of the ways that we can make sure that that investment goes everywhere across the whole country is to open up decision making, so all of the decisions aren't taken in Whitehall, sometimes hundreds of miles away from the places that are affected by those decisions. The government's been trailing for 2 years a devolution bill. We got the Queen's speech last week outlining their legislative programme, no devolution bill. Now, where is it? Now, my suspicion is, because Labour won 11 of the 13 mayoral elections, regional and city mayoral elections across the country, the Tories have got cold feet and just ditched it. Now, Labour will be able to craft a much better forward offer on jobs, secure employment, better pay, if we can bring forward proposals around devolution.
But again, coming back to Rachel Reeves and her policies on the worker, she's been taking advice from Joe Biden's team in the States. I mean, you can't get much further away. If we're talking about taking decisions, there are very few things about the economy that compare directly between workers' rights in America and here. There's just not much relevance apart from the fact that Joe Biden won an election and Keir Starmer doesn't seem able to.
Well, she's not going to be adopting dot by dot what Joe Biden's doing, but people are looking for radical. Joe Biden's been pretty radical with the investment that he's putting into the US economy, and there are things we can learn from there to adapt. to a UK circumstance. But one of the things is that we cannot go on with all decisions being taken in Whitehall about other regions of the country when Whitehall doesn't understand those regions. But take another issue. There's a major crisis in social care affecting this country. People are concerned about their older relatives who are not getting the care they need and deserve as they get older. Boris Johnson said on the very day he first became Prime Minister, he stood on the steps of Downing Street and he told the country that he had a plan to fix the social care crisis. Well, we're some way into his premiership now, and here's the Queen's speech last week, no sign of anything on social care again. So the government is simply neglecting.
Yes, there are issues that Keir Starmer should be able to land a punch on. Social care is most definitely one of them, but he doesn't seem able to. And again, Tony Blair was saying he doesn't seem to be breaking through into the consciousness in a way that somebody like Andy Burnham does. And one of the criticisms of that is that people aren't quite sure what Keir Starmer stands for. That one minute he's taking the knee, the next minute he's not commenting on issues that he should comment on. He's going on to Piers Morgan's TV show this week. What do you want to see him say or do? What Keir Starmer is it? Which Keir Starmer is it that you want to see Piers Morgan being interviewing?
Your first point, the difference between Andy Burnham and Keir Starmer is Andy Burnham is running a city and taking decisions real time. Keir Starmer's the leader of the opposition. It's always going to be harder to cut through when you're in opposition, not in power, particularly in the circumstances of the pandemic. Now, one of the things I really felt strongly on the doorsteps during the run up to the local elections last week is that people are much warmer towards the Labour Party than they have been in recent years. People see Keir Starmer as a credible alternative Prime Minister. They want to know more about who Keir the man really is. Now, I've known Keir for a while. I work with him in Parliament. I get a sense of who he is, but the country doesn't. So I'm really pleased that he's doing this interview with Piers, because it will give the country a chance to get a better sense of who Keir is. And once they get to know him, I think they will see there is a man who is absolutely driven by a moral compass and a desire to correct the injustices in this country. And some of that comes from his own background and his own life. Like, the more people understand that, the better it will be. But, as I said, he's been leader for a year, not even been able to give a speech to a lot.
Well, he's been leader for a year, and I totally take the point, as I've already said, about the extraordinary circumstances of this time. But equally, people, when asked, just simply don't know what he stands for. One of the problems, as Tony Blair was saying, is because he seems to be in thrall to the wokerati, as some would call them, and that he's terrified of offending that wing of the party.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I know because I talk to Keir that the things that motivate him are injustices that hold people back. He's really taken, as the Labour Party is, by the fact that inequality, regional inequalities in communities, hold people back from achieving their true potential. So what does a policy prospectus look like that starts to address that? Well, part of it is going to be about bringing in the investment for the good jobs of the future in every single part of the country. Part of it is families, a better offer on childcare, a better offer on social care, so that people don't grow old fearful about whether they'll get the care that they need. And also strengthening people's sense of connection with their own community and their own place. The government at the moment is bringing forward proposals like the planning bill that are going to basically gag communities and local people from having any say over development in their locality, so it can all be given to developers. That is not how you regenerate communities in ways that work for local people. That is basically the government paying back developers because they are increasingly funding the Conservative Party.
Steve Reid, I think you've made it clear that there is a lot in Keir Starmer's in tray and a lot for him to be getting on with. But thank you so much for talking to us on Times Radio